Imagine standing in a narrow cobblestone alley, the echo of a small engine bouncing between stone walls, one twist of the throttle, and suddenly, the whole street feels alive. There's something about machines that promise more than movement. They offer escape, identity, and the faint illusion of flight. Decades ago, one particular design did all that with just 98 cubic centimeters of determination. It looked delicate, but it carried the weight of a nation rebuilding itself. Born from scarcity and forged by necessity, it turned practicality into poetry on two wheels. Its shape became shorthand for independence. Its sound, the heartbeat of post-war optimism, what started as a humble answer to a transportation crisis, grew into a symbol that crossed oceans, dressed up in chrome and pastel paint, and whispered a single irresistible idea. Freedom could be beautiful. Stick around as we unpack how that unlikely little scooter rewrote the rules of mobility, style, and culture, and why its legacy still hums through city streets today. If you enjoy stories like this, like the video, subscribe, and drop a comment telling us which legendary machine we should explore next. The Vespa 98 of 1946 didn't begin as a dream of design. It began as an act of survival. Italy was broken after the war, its roads shattered, its industry in shambles, and its people desperate for movement. Piaggio, once a builder of aircraft, faced a question that would define its future. How do you turn factories that built bombers into something that could rebuild lives? The answer came in two wheels and an idea that simplicity could carry elegance. The Vespa 98 was conceived not by a motorcycle fanatic, but by Corradino d'Ascanio, an aeronautical engineer who openly disliked motorcycles. That skepticism became its strength. He saw the flaws of traditional bikes, greasy chains, exposed mechanics, the awkward swing of a leg over the saddle, and designed them out of existence. He wanted something graceful, clean, and approachable, something a person could ride in a suit or a skirt without fear of oil stains or intimidation. Out of that logic came the Vespa's now iconic step-through frame, pressed steel body, and enclosed engine. The name Vespa, meaning wasp, wasn't a branding brainstorm. It was a spontaneous remark from Piaggio's founder upon hearing its distinctive buzz. But that sound soon became a national rhythm, a soundtrack to Italy's recovery. In the late 1940s, Europe was starved for affordable transport. Cars were too expensive, motorcycles too raw. The Vespa 98, weighing under 100 kilograms and sipping fuel like a sparrow, slotted perfectly between necessity and aspiration. Its cost was reachable, its maintenance minimal, its charm undeniable. Soldiers returning from war found in it a way to reclaim the roads. Students found a ticket to independence. Families found a promise that daily life could be functional and fun. The engineering was simple but clever. The 98cc two-stroke engine produced just over 3 horsepower, barely enough to outrun a brisk cyclist. But its automatic gear selector on the handlebar made riding intuitive. No complex clutch, no grime, no intimidation. The steel monocoque body wasn't just stylish. It was a structural innovation that eliminated the need for a separate frame, saving cost and weight while adding rigidity. Every curve served purpose and personality. It didn't look like a machine. It looked like motion captured mid-smile. What made the Vespa 98 more than a product, though, was timing. Italy's streets were alive with rebuilding. There was a hunger for optimism, and design became the language of hope. D'Ascanio's creation wasn't just transportation, it was a morale booster. In posters, magazines, and storefronts, the Vespa 98 appeared as a small miracle. Young couples zipping through sunny piazzas, laughter in the air, the wasp-shaped scooter gliding over cobblestones. The machine projected confidence even when the country had none to spare. That connection between emotion and engineering became Piaggio's greatest asset. They weren't selling horsepower, they were selling happiness on wheels. The early production run was modest, but the demand was immediate. Each unit represented the rebirth of mobility. Local dealers became cultural hubs where riders swapped stories and tips, and the Vespa began to gather a following that looked less like a market segment and more like a movement. To own one wasn't just to buy convenience, it was to join a new rhythm of life. Yet behind its effortless charm lay real challenges. Manufacturing a new type of vehicle meant retooling everything: supply chains, materials, even worker training. Piaggio bet its survival on a product that, at first, seemed too whimsical for post-war austerity. But as the first reviews trickled in, praising its light handling and reliability, skepticism turned to demand. The Vespa 98 proved that practicality didn't have to be ugly. Its minimalism wasn't a compromise. It was an aesthetic born of engineering clarity. In Italy's design renaissance, alongside Olivetti typewriters and Fiat microcars, the Vespa stood as a national statement. Good design could be democratic. Still, its true revolution came from accessibility. Women, who had rarely been part of motorcycle culture, found in the Vespa an open invitation. No kickstart gymnastics, no mechanical grime, just a twist-and-go simplicity that mirrored modern life. Students, artists, and professionals alike embraced it as a symbol of personal agency. This wasn't a motorbike for enthusiasts. It was for everyone. And that universality gave it cultural gravity. The Vespa 98's success wasn't guaranteed. It was earned by understanding human behavior better than any rival. In a landscape of heavy, roaring machines, it whispered its way to the heart of a generation. Over 2,000 units of the original 98 were built, each one a small chapter in a larger national recovery story. As Piaggio expanded production and refined designs, they didn't stray from the formula. Approachability first, elegance always. It's easy to forget now, in an age of electric scooters and digital dashboards, just how radical that concept was. But in 1946, the Vespa 98 wasn't a trend. It was transformation on two wheels. The secret of its success lay not in what it added, but in what it left out. No excess weight, no unnecessary mechanics, no intimidation. Every line and curve existed for a reason, and that restraint made it timeless. As Italy rebuilt, so did Piaggio, expanding beyond transport into cultural export. Yet the original Vespa 98 remained the genesis, the spark that proved design could rewrite destiny. From here, its influence would spread beyond Italy's borders and into the world's imagination. And that global awakening is where the story of the Vespa 98 truly begins. The Vespa 98 of 1946 didn't stay confined to Italian streets for long. It was too distinctive, too practical, and too emotionally charged to remain a local curiosity. Within a few short years, the little scooter that had carried a nation toward recovery began to attract attention from across Europe. In Paris, it became a post-war fashion statement. In London, a countercultural accessory. In Madrid, a symbol of freedom under restraint. The Vespa 98 was still modest in power, but it was enormous in presence. The scooter's rounded body and gentle hum stood in stark contrast to the thundering motorcycles of the era. Where others projected aggression, the Vespa radiated charm. Riders could glide instead of roar, arrive rather than dominate. That shift in tone redefined what two-wheel transport could mean. Piaggio understood this instinctively and built a marketing language around aspiration rather than performance. Advertisements showed smiling couples, sunlit streets, and open horizons, mobility as lifestyle, not machinery. The Vespa 98 became the pivot point for a global idea that convenience and beauty could coexist. As Piaggio expanded production, the Vespa's accessibility drew in new demographics everywhere it went. It didn't matter if you were a student, a worker, or a movie star, its form fit all equally. This democratic appeal would prove unstoppable once the machine crossed into film and media. Its cinematic moment of destiny came in the early 1950s, when Hollywood's fascination with Europe turned the continent into a backdrop for post-war romance. When a certain leading actress rode through Rome on a Vespa, laughter and hair flying, the world fell in love not only with her, but with the scooter beneath her. That moment did what decades of advertising couldn't. It made the Vespa a symbol of carefree exploration, youth, and possibility. The Vespa 98 was long out of production by then, but its spirit lived on in every successor model, each one carrying the DNA of that first design. Simplicity, accessibility, and style above all else. In the United States, where big motorcycles ruled and scooters were still considered novelties, the Vespa arrived as a kind of cultural outsider. Yet its difference became its strength. American cities, with their growing congestion and appetite for individuality, proved fertile ground for the idea of a small, efficient, effortlessly stylish vehicle. College campuses in coastal towns adopted the Vespa as shorthand for European flair. Piaggio's U.S. strategy leaned into that identity, selling not a commuter tool, but a passport to another way of life. Dealers became lifestyle hubs filled with posters of sun-drenched piazzas and the promise of spontaneous escape. Still, for all its charm, the Vespa faced real competition. Other manufacturers saw the surge in small displacement scooters and rushed to imitate the formula. But none could capture the Vespa's blend of elegance and authenticity. Where rivals cut costs, Piaggio refined details. Where others chased power, Vespa chased grace. That restraint earned it a different kind of respect. Enthusiasts began to form clubs, organizing rides that were as much social gatherings as mechanical showcases. The Vespa 98's descendants became cultural glue, connecting generations and geographies. Customization also became part of the story. Riders painted them, polished them, and personalized them until each scooter became a rolling expression of self. In the United Kingdom, those custom machines evolved into the mod movement, sharp suits, mirrors, and scooters as identity. The seed planted by the Vespa 98 blossomed into an entire subculture. In racing circles, too, the Vespa showed surprising spirit. While never built as a competition machine, it appeared in endurance events and rallies where reliability mattered more than raw speed. The scooter's simple two-stroke heart proved nearly indestructible when maintained properly. Stories spread of riders crossing entire countries on what began as a commuter vehicle, reinforcing its reputation for durability. Each generation of Vespa improved in comfort, efficiency, and handling, but the original 98 remained the benchmark for purity. Even as Piaggio introduced larger engines and sleeker frames, the essence of the 1946 design remained untouched. It was an industrial artifact that refused to age. The world around it changed. Roads modernized, cars grew bigger, oil crises came and went. But the Vespa kept buzzing along, unbothered and beloved. For Piaggio, the challenge was evolution without betrayal. They had to keep the scooter fresh while protecting the DNA that made the Vespa 98 special. Over time, the company introduced automatic transmissions, electric start, and improved suspension, yet each new model bowed quietly to its ancestor. That balance of progress and nostalgia became a cornerstone of the brand's identity. Collectors began to hunt for surviving Vespa 98s, drawn by their rarity and symbolism. Many had been ridden hard, repaired endlessly, and finally retired to barns or sheds. Restoring one required dedication, finding original parts, matching paint codes, recreating decals, but the reward was owning a tangible piece of mobility history. In museums and private garages alike, the Vespa 98 came to represent not just the origin of a product line, but the birth of post-war industrial optimism. In cultural studies, it became a case of design empathy, a machine that understood its users' lives better than any market survey ever could. It wasn't designed for enthusiasts, but for ordinary people, and that made it extraordinary. Even as scooters evolved into electrified, app-connected devices, the Vespa 98 stands as a reminder of when design solved human problems with mechanical grace instead of digital complexity. The world's fascination with simplicity has brought its image back into focus. Whether in fashion shoots or art exhibits, the silhouette of that 1946 original carries the same emotional charge. It's no longer about speed or status. It's about the beauty of functional design executed with honesty. The Vespa 98's global story is one of contrast, between necessity and desire, between austerity and joy. It taught the world that engineering could have personality and that small things could carry great meaning. And while its successors would travel farther and faster, none would quite capture that first spark. As the post-war decades turned into modern history, the Vespa's hum became part of the soundtrack of everyday life. What began as a single model in a ruined factory became an ambassador of optimism on every continent. From this global stage, the Vespa 98 story turns toward its lasting legacy, the way it shaped modern mobility, inspired countless designs, and continues to influence how we think about freedom itself. The Vespa 98 of 1946 remains the origin point of a design philosophy that has outlived generations of machines and riders alike. Its legacy is not simply in the metal or the motor, it's in the mindset it introduced, that mobility could be democratic, emotional, and beautiful at once. In the decades that followed, Piaggio's descendants of the Vespa 98 carried that ideal forward, adapting to changing economies and cultures without losing their essence. Yet it's the first one, the 98, that still defines what Vespa means. To understand its lasting power, we have to see how it changed expectations. Before it, personal transport was about power and endurance. After it, it became about connection and experience. The Vespa 98 offered a quiet kind of freedom, unassuming, graceful, accessible. It made design the centerpiece of daily life, not a luxury reserved for the few. Over time, the world of scooters exploded with competition. But every successful design carried some of the Vespa's DNA. Even electric mobility today, sleek, minimal, intuitive, echoes the spirit of the 98. That's its true legacy. An industrial archetype that keeps reappearing because it got the human part right. In Europe, collectors treat the Vespa 98 like sacred art. Only a handful of originals survive, their soft metal bodies bearing the scars of real use. Restorers describe them as surprisingly delicate to handle, yet profoundly sturdy once complete. A contradiction that mirrors the post-war era itself. Every bolt and curve tells a story of a nation rediscovering its rhythm, of design as therapy for collective trauma. Owning one isn't about nostalgia alone. It's about witnessing a turning point where engineering and empathy met. And for enthusiasts in the United States, the Vespa 98 holds special fascination precisely because so few ever crossed the Atlantic. Import laws and limited production kept it a European phenomenon, making authentic survivors rare and valuable. Yet its influence shaped American scooter culture indirectly. Every compact commuter, every modern city scooter that promises style and convenience, owes something to that original Wasp from 1946. The 98's influence also reached into art and identity. In paintings, photographs, and fashion campaigns, its silhouette became shorthand for optimism. Designers cite it as proof that constraints can breed creativity, that beauty doesn't require excess, just intention. That lesson has echoed across industries, from architecture to consumer tech, where minimalism remains the ultimate badge of confidence. Even the sound of the Vespa 98, its soft staccato buzz, has been archived as cultural heritage. In urban museums and design schools, students study its contours not as nostalgia, but as enduring function, every detail doing exactly what it must, nothing more. And in that restraint lies genius. For riders who experience one today even briefly, the magic endures. The acceleration is modest, the handling light, yet something about the feel transcends performance. It's like riding a memory made tangible, a mechanical whisper from a time when joy was engineered with wrenches instead of code. The Vespa 98 doesn't shout. It hums, reminding us that design's greatest triumphs often begin with solving ordinary problems in extraordinary ways. Piaggio's challenge since has been to honor that origin without turning it into a museum piece. Each new Vespa model, no matter how modern, bows to the 98 through its silhouette, its riding posture, its balance of charm and pragmatism. That consistency across decades is rare in automotive history. Most brands reinvent. Vespa refines, and the reason it can do that is because the 98 set a blueprint so precise it barely needs adjustment. Its design is language, fluent, adaptable, and eternal. In a modern world dominated by digital distractions and disposable trends, the Vespa 98's simplicity feels almost rebellious. It reminds us that technology should enhance experience, not overwhelm it. When you see one glide by today, perhaps lovingly restored, its paint gleaming under sunlight, you're not just seeing history. You're seeing proof that innovation, when rooted in empathy and clarity, never ages. From its first engine turn in 1946 to its presence in museums and private collections today, the Vespa 98 continues to speak quietly but clearly. Progress doesn't have to erase beauty. It can preserve it. And in doing so, it keeps reminding us that true design isn't about complexity, it's about character. That's why, even as the world speeds ahead with electrics, autonomy, and AI, the Vespa 98 remains timeless, because it was never about the future alone. It was about understanding people. That understanding is its most enduring invention. From here, we can finally see the full shape of its impact. How a machine born from scarcity became a symbol of abundance. How a simple scooter turned into an enduring cultural signature, and why, nearly 80 years later, the hum of the Vespa 98 still echoes wherever people chase freedom with grace. The Vespa 98 of 1946 left behind more than a set of blueprints. It left a living philosophy, one that continues to shape how we think about design, identity, and mobility. For American audiences, that legacy is especially meaningful now, as cities grow denser and the idea of efficient human-scale transport makes a comeback. To own or even ride a Vespa 98 today is to step directly into history. Every vibration, every lean through a corner connects you to a moment when ingenuity rebuilt possibility from nothing. In the collector market, genuine Vespa 98s are rare gems. Restored examples command six-figure prices depending on provenance and condition, yet their value isn't measured in dollars alone. It's measured in the purity of their purpose. For those lucky enough to own one, reliability comes down to patience and respect. The 98's two-stroke engine, when cared for, is remarkably robust. Parts availability is limited, but passionate specialists across Europe and the US keep the lineage alive with handcrafted reproductions. Owning one isn't effortless, it's a ritual. Every start, every tune-up, every polish is an act of preservation, not just of machinery, but of meaning. For riders who can't find or afford an original, later Vespa models still carry the same charm and usability that made the 98 so beloved. They may have evolved, but the essence, the upright posture, the quiet hum, the friendliness of design remains intact. What makes the Vespa 98 timeless isn't nostalgia. It's relevance. It represents a kind of engineering honesty that the modern world keeps trying to rediscover. In a marketplace crowded with oversized vehicles and disposable gadgets, the 98's smallness feels like a statement. Efficiency can be elegant. Restraint can be beautiful, and freedom can fit in a narrow parking space. That's a message worth holding on to. For US enthusiasts curious about import regulations, owning a Vespa 98 is entirely possible, though it requires paperwork and patience. Because it predates most modern standards, it qualifies as a vintage collector's item, meaning importation is typically exempt from emissions compliance. However, authenticity verification and transport insurance are critical. Counterfeit or over-restored examples can flood the market. A genuine 1946 Vespa 98 will show telltale details: the split front fender, the distinctive pressed steel handlebar, the minimal leg shield proportions, and the unique 98cc engine stamp. When sourcing parts, the same care applies. While modern components can fit with adaptation, true preservation depends on authenticity. Collectors advise keeping the patina intact whenever possible. The wear tells a story of survival that fresh paint can never replace. From an ownership standpoint, the 98 isn't about convenience, it's about conversation. Bring one to any vintage meet or cars and coffee event, and you'll see curiosity turn into admiration. People who've never ridden a scooter will ask about it, drawn not by horsepower but by emotion. That's the Vespa 98's quiet magic. It connects generations without effort. For those looking to experience its essence without the rarity, the modern Vespa Primavera and 946 borrow directly from its silhouette. The same curve of the body, the same ergonomics, the same ease of entry, all direct descendants of that first Wasp. They may hum with four-stroke or electric energy now, but the lineage is unmistakable. The 98 remains their ancestor, their compass. In reflecting on its story, what stands out isn't its speed or its engineering specs. It's how it made people feel. It turned mobility into optimism, design into emotion, and simplicity into an art form. It proved that even the smallest invention can ripple across decades when it meets a real human need. That's why the Vespa 98 endures as more than a museum piece. It's a cultural touchstone, a mechanical poem that keeps rewriting itself through each generation that rediscovers it. As we navigate an era defined by complexity, this small 1946 scooter reminds us of a deeper truth. Innovation means very little unless it makes life more graceful. The Vespa 98 did that effortlessly, and that's why, nearly 80 years later, its story still feels new. The next time you hear the gentle hum of a scooter passing by, imagine the echo reaching all the way back to 1946, to a factory in post-war Italy where engineers believed that freedom could be built, not declared. That belief still rides with us today. Progress with grace, that's the legacy of the Vespa 98.